Hello, this video summary is from our session about reflection. And we talked about so much, so I've written out what I think were the best discussion topics. We'll see if it makes sense in this order. So I shared that by reading the chapter, I realized that I have never had a parent or a partner or a lover, friend, business, anything. I've never really had someone who believed in me, who encouraged me, supported me, at least not in a way that I could understand it. And still, I mean, yet that is something that I live for in my life, to support others, to encourage others, like from my children, to my clients, to my friends. It's always been extremely important to me. Maybe because I never had any of it. But that reflection made me feel really good about myself. I even made a little conscious choice to move away from the sad feeling, because there is a sad feeling that there's a lack of support, and there still is. To focusing on how I lead my life. So I'm not, this is a little bit uncomfortable to share, but I say it because the reflection was, the shift that came from the reflection was huge for me. So I realized that, shoot, there was a little bit of that victimhood that came up, like, I didn't get any support. I don't know what it's like to be a mother and have someone help you. And I will add, from the last one-on-one session I had with Anders, see, I feel that cry lump now. I actually forced myself not to cry in that session, Anders, because he shared that they have now, Maria and him they have a new au pair coming, so they will have the help, and they need it so much. And so in my head, this is very private, but so there are two parents and only two kids, and they're gonna get a helper. And so it's a big thing for me, not having support, but still being so willing to give it. And the value is not in saying that, oh, I help so many people. Not at all. It's in saying that the reflection helped me feel really good about it. So I hope all that blabbing makes sense. Sometimes when we reflect, that's when we find the gold. There will be more gold. So stop and look back at 2019. We did that in the session, but take some time, some severe time for yourself. Look at what did not go so well and why. What message, help, or guidance can you abstract from that? You know? What has been a huge success for you? Has there been a win? Have you learned something? Did you achieve or accomplish something or understand something? I know that at least 3 people watching this video have gone through some pretty impressive personal development. So that's the best investment one can make, to invest in your personal growth, because everything you do, every thought, everything will be better. You will be perfecter. And so that success, how did it happen? Why did it happen? That's a key question. I mean, if you can capture, okay, why did I close this big deal? Why did I get promoted? Why did I manage to do all this? If you can outline the steps that got you there, well, there you have your success formula. Rinse and repeat. And yes, I wrote here as a little side note, POP, I've shared it before, proceed or pivot. So when you look at things that, is it going great? My 2019 was just awesome. Okay, then no need to change anything. Proceed, speed it up, or raise the bar. If you feel like, well, I thought I was gonna achieve this, but I'm just not getting there. Okay, maybe it's time for you to pivot, not your track, but the goal. Maybe you're not aiming at the right thing for you. What did I write here? If it's good, proceed. Oh yes, proceed or pivot. Change something. Okay, this is probably my favorite from the chapter. Page 55, in the middle of the page, is where he talks about sometimes, well, he says something like, we're so busy, we're running around and we do this, and then there are moments, the markers, like getting married, getting divorced, someone we love dies, or we become a parent, or we move country, we move country again, we start a business, we fail a business, all these things. And sometimes if we add the ingredient of reflection, these life markers can become life makers. And only through reflection can we capture these pieces of gold. I shared my story about a teacher I had in the university. I wrote, English was my favorite subject, and my childhood dream was to become an author. And I didn't get any grades. She didn't write the grades, so I was like, oh my god, what is wrong? And then I turned the page and it says in a pink pen, red pen, you should be an author. And that, oh my gosh, it definitely marked me to the point that it made me. It's what made me ultimately write my first book. So that marker is definitely a life maker. And when you capture them, you feel so good. It's like, yes, it's a piece of gold in your life and it's within you. So I encourage you to find one of them. What did I write here? After our session, as I prepared these notes, I realized that reflecting one layer deeper on the why did it make me? That's interesting. For me, with the book, it's definitely that Abby saw my talent, that she saw me, and she encouraged me. See, that goes back to that whole thing of who encourages you. Sometimes a little thing like that, I mean, is you should be an author. 5 words. Massive impact in my life. So finding moments where people or incidents have done that for you, or maybe even where have you done that for others? If you haven't, can you? You know, can you be that person who actually is a life marker that becomes a life maker for someone? I think that's an incredibly fulfilling goal to add to one's list of goals. Yeah, I wrote here some life markers: divorce, burnout, move country. I said that. The personal awareness question. We talked about what is your most worthwhile emotion and what is your least worthwhile emotion. For Tatiana, I love this. The most worthwhile emotion is that you are so positive. You are so positive, and you are sometimes to a degree where it's like it's not in balance, but I think that's wrong. I think that's a wrong kind of thought or reflection. I'm not saying I think that, but you really are super positive. I've seen it in so many different ways. And the least one, you first said, I don't know, which really actually proves the positive mindset you have, because you don't take it there. You don't go looking for, what could be wrong. Freaking awesome. I wrote, so cool, because it's the true definition of a positive soul. And Sahar said that the least worthwhile emotion is the frustration when growth is stopped or slowed down because of events, life, someone else. And then you take things personally. You get angry. And I said, this sounds a little bit like victimhood, which was, no, it's not victimhood. But what I meant was as in being a victim emotionally to what goes on around you. Loss of ownership of one's feelings means you are a victim to what happens around you. Not a victim as in sitting around and complaining, but we sorted that out. And Sahara, I like that you said that you could capture it, that you had this intense resistance to the word victim, and you know where it came from because that's how you see your mother. But then the big question for you is, do you want to be a victim to losing your own peace? How can you go from being reactive and think, you said, what have I done wrong? You know, instead of thinking that, to being in control of your peace. How can you go from being in that reactive state and depending on what people think, what they say, how quick it goes, to being more in control of your thoughts and feelings. Thoughts and feelings. Anders said it's the self-pity, like John explains in the book. I said for me, and this is one of those things you don't want to admit, but it's jealousy. And I expanded on that, I think a little bit to defend myself. I don't want to be jealous. But when you are independent and you run your own business, you actually have to compete with those around you, with competition, and you have to compare, which is unhealthy. You somehow, maybe you don't have to, but I don't know how to do it another way than to compete with myself and always wanting to be the best at the top. And then of course you see others, competitors maybe, they show off every time they have a success or a win. Social media is disgusting from that perspective. And then that little jealousy feeling comes. And I don't like it. But ever since it's 2015, I got a really good piece of advice from one of my mentors. He said, every time you feel that, take it and use it. Instead of focusing on them, take it back and think, make it be gasoline on your fire. That's what that looks like. How can you be better? How can you do more? How can you achieve the results you want? Question about how often and intentionally we stop to reflect. Tatiana, I love this. You concluded your thoughts with, it just happens. Just happens. And then you said, and I love when people can capture in the moment their thoughts. You said, if I did it intentionally, I'd be differently successful. And I asked, how so? You said, I would target better, I would make a better impact, and I would make bigger money. Sounds like it would be interesting for you to reflect a little bit more intentionally. What did I write here? Looking back at something, a year, a relationship, a business deal, it is always much easier to see what we could have done better, right, in retrospect. The question now is, can you stop and reflect as it happens, more in the now or in the process, at the end of the day, at the end of the week? And the big thing here for Anders is that when he plans out his goals, he tends to take into consideration that others may not be able to work or move forward as fast as him. So that can lead to frustration or goals not being met because it's not humanly possible for them to keep up the pace. So that's a good thing to take into consideration when you set your goals, right? What's a tough question you need to ask yourself? Again, this is, if you sit with this question and you just unpeel your inner, like the emotional onion of daily life, of just routines, you can get to some good stuff. Tatiana, you shared that. What's a tough question you need to ask yourself? What am I afraid of? Why am I so lazy? And when you said that, I reflected then and there, and I felt like, is it really laziness? I see you when you're at home, like doing all this ironing, and I feel, I don't think that's not lazy. If you ask me to iron right now, it's just, no. So maybe it's just you loving your freedom. And I don't know, but I would love to hear if you think more into this. Is maybe all these moments where you're being hard on yourself, feeling that you're lazy, but not really punishing yourself. Is it maybe so that this positive, free soul that you are, you're just loving life and living your freedom? If so, can you see how important it is to make that shift of having a loop of saying, I'm lazy, I'm not doing what I should, or saying, oh my God, I love my life. Oh my God, I love my life. Anders spoke about returning to Denmark, helping Maria get a good job. And listening to that, I wrote, and I shared it in the session, what do I need to focus on in 2020 to optimize my transition back to Denmark? Most of what you've said, Anders, sounds as if I almost want to say that there's some guilt. I don't know if that's the thing at all, but your responsibility, at least, to make sure that Maria gets a good situation. But what about you? We said that. We talked about it a lot. So how do you need to? How do you want to prepare your transition back to Denmark? What are the things you need to do and can do for you? Tatiana wants clear and detailed instructions. Through reflection, it is obvious to you that when working with someone, whatever it is, you want clear and detailed instructions. And for example, Anders' perspective is big picture. So Tatiana shared that for her it would be super frustrating and non-motivating to collaborate because she wouldn't know what to do. She would want him to say tick, 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 and then she would do it. All right. Anders is going to take time and reinstall the whiteboard with the post-its to do, doing, done at work, and have clearer priorities, planning, and expectations for his team members. Before the end of the year, Tatiana is working on writing out and framing her draft vision for 2020. I have done mine. I'll share it next time. Very personal. Anders shared that through reflection, he's come to the conclusion that he had this big thing of wanting a Porsche. But he no longer wants the Porsche. He wants the experience of driving a Porsche. So from material to the experience. Also slightly different budget. I shared that for me, reflection from 2019. I also shared this in the session where we talked about priorities. I felt that I'm prioritizing like this, gold star. But I put others' needs first. So that's why I was so tired, because I worked through the night. So for me, it's 2020, more me. Hashtag more me. Make me matter, me and me. It's a me and me year. I will turn 45, so 45er. Anders is also going to go with more me and think of what has to be said that is not said. We shared our, oh yeah, that was the greatest takeaways. Greatest takeaways from the session. For Anders, it was the more me and what has to be said that is not said. For Tatiana, it was, am I really lazy? And for me, I have to celebrate. You know that I set big goals and I have achieved every goal I've set. And then instead of like celebrating, I've seen friends who publish their first book, and before anyone even buys the book, they have this huge launch party, and then they invite everyone they know to a cocktail to celebrate that the book is ready. I've written and published 5 books, and 3 of them are bestsellers. I've never had a party. I've never celebrated. I mean, I've done, and I've high-fived myself, but I've never taken a moment to celebrate. So I'm going to celebrate. You may get an invitation to a party soon. All right.